It was one of those days when everything felt right. The sun was setting over San Diego, casting a warm golden glow through the windows of our home. Claire was bustling around, preparing dinner, and Emily was working on a new coding project at the kitchen table. I'd come home early from work that day, hoping to surprise them with a nice meal, maybe even take a walk along the beach afterward. Life was good, steady, comfortable. But that evening, I should have known something was off. Claire had been acting a little distant lately, though I tried to brush it off. She'd been working long hours at her graphic design job, so I figured she was just stressed. But there was this nagging feeling in the back of my mind that I couldn't shake. She had started staying out later, not showing much interest in our usual evening routine. I told myself it was nothing. I trusted Claire. I always had. She was the one who always kept our family grounded, and the thought that something might be wrong never crossed my mind. But it wasn't just the late nights. It was the way she started taking calls in private, disappearing into the other room, or texting with a smile on her face that never seemed to reach her eyes. Maybe I was just overthinking it, but I couldn't help but feel a shift in the air. Still, I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to entertain the idea that something might be wrong. Claire was my wife, the mother of our daughter. We were a team. But that night, as I set the table for dinner and noticed the silence in the house, the quiet tension that had been building between us over the past few weeks became undeniable. Emily, who was usually so full of questions and stories about her day, was unusually quiet, tapping away at her laptop without even glancing up. The laughter that once filled our evenings had started to fade, leaving behind a cold, uncomfortable silence. I tried to push the thought away. Maybe it was just a phase, I reasoned. Maybe Claire was stressed. Maybe Emily was just busy with schoolwork. But when the doorbell rang and I found the house completely empty except for Emily upstairs, my heart started to race. I grabbed my phone, seeing that Emily had texted me, "Dad, I need to show you something." The knot in my stomach tightened. I walked upstairs to her room, my mind racing with 1,000 questions I didn't want to ask. When I saw her sitting there, her face unusually serious, I knew something had changed. She opened her laptop and showed me a series of files that made my blood run cold. There, in plain sight, was an email thread between Claire and a man named Mark Thompson, someone she had met at a design conference months ago. Their texts had started off as friendly banter, but quickly escalated into something far more intimate. Claire had been planning a life with him, talking about leaving everything behind. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the bank transfers. Money from our joint savings account, thousands of dollars at a time, moving into an account that Claire had set up without me knowing. My stomach dropped as the reality of what was happening began to hit me. Claire wasn't just having an affair. She was stealing from us, planning to leave our family behind, and I hadn't even seen it coming. I stared at the screen, the evidence in front of me so clear, so damning, that it felt surreal. My mind raced, but no matter how many times I read the same text messages, the reality of it didn't change. Claire, my wife, had been having an affair with Mark Thompson for months. What hit hardest wasn't just the affair. It was the fact that she had been planning to leave us. She'd been siphoning money from our joint savings account, using it to fund a life she envisioned with him, far away from our family, far away from Emily. The shock was suffocating. I turned to Emily, who was sitting across from me, her face solemn but steady, as if she had already processed everything I hadn't. "How long have you known?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I was afraid of the answer, but at the same time, I needed to know. Emily didn't hesitate. "I started noticing things a while ago," she said, her voice quieter than usual. I kept asking myself if I was just imagining it, but when I saw her text with him, I knew something was wrong. So I started looking more closely, checking the bank account, watching her phone when she wasn't around. She paused for a moment before continuing, her words tinged with a sadness I wasn't sure she should have had to carry. "I didn't want to believe it, Dad, but when I saw the money, when I saw what she was doing with it, I couldn't ignore it anymore." I sat back, trying to absorb everything she had said. My daughter, at 12 years old, had been living in a world of secrets she shouldn't have had to navigate. I couldn't believe Claire had put Emily in this position. I never thought I'd be the one to tell my daughter that her mother was planning to leave her, planning to destroy the foundation of our family for the sake of some twisted fantasy. I had failed her. I had failed us. I looked back at the screen, the bank transfers staring back at me in cold, clinical black and white. Claire had taken over $100,000 from the savings meant for Emily's future, the college fund we'd built together. It wasn't just money. It was our daughter's future. How could Claire, the woman I loved, do this to our family? How could she choose him, someone she barely knew, over the daughter she had raised? The questions spun in my mind like a whirlwind, but I couldn't find any answers. I forced myself to take a deep breath and refocus. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about Emily's future, and I couldn't let Claire's actions destroy that. I looked at her, sitting so calmly across from me, and realized just how strong she was. "Emily," I said, my voice more steady than I felt, "you've done the right thing. You protected us. And now I'm going to make sure we're okay." I saw the faintest hint of a smile on her lips, but it didn't reach her eyes. She didn't want to smile. She didn't want to feel relief. But I could tell she was relieved that the burden she had been carrying was finally out in the open. I pulled her into a hug, holding her tight, as though I could shield her from the weight of it all. I should have done more sooner. I should have been the one to notice Claire's distance, to ask the hard questions. But instead, I had let it fester until it became a nightmare. Emily pulled away after a moment, looking at me with those wise, earnest eyes that seemed far older than her 12 years. "What are we going to do now, Dad?" she asked, her voice quiet but steady. I knew what I had to do. "I'm going to confront your mom," I said, my tone hardening. "I'll handle it, Emily. We'll be okay. I won't let her do this to you." I walked to the other room, feeling a sense of urgency settle in my chest. This had gone too far. Claire had crossed a line I never imagined she would, and it was time to stop pretending. She needed to face the consequences of her actions. But more importantly, Emily and I needed to take back control of our lives. We deserved that much. As I grabbed my phone and dialed Claire's number, I realized something. This wasn't just about saving money or fixing the mess Claire had created. It was about protecting Emily, the little girl who had been forced to grow up too fast, the little girl who had been betrayed, not just by her mother, but by the one person who should have kept her safe, the person who was supposed to be her rock. I wouldn't fail her again. Not this time. The phone rang several times before Claire picked up. Her voice was flat, almost as if she had been waiting for this moment. "Ethan," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "What's going on?" I clenched my jaw. "We need to talk. Now. I know everything." There was a long pause on the other end. I could almost hear her calculating her response. Then, finally, she spoke again. "What do you mean? Everything?" I could feel my blood pressure rising. "I mean the affair, Claire. I know about Mark, and I know about the money. All of it." My voice was steadier than I expected, even though inside, everything was shaking. My heart ached, but I couldn't let it show. Not now. Not when Emily was watching me from the other room, her eyes full of both fear and hope. There was silence again. I could hear Claire's breath, slow and uneven, and I knew she was trying to find a way out of this, a way to explain herself. But there was no explanation. Not for what she had done, not for the lies, the betrayal, and the theft. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," Claire said finally, her voice breaking. "I just got caught up, Ethan. I didn't want to hurt you or Emily. I never meant to." Her words stung, but I wasn't going to let her soften the truth. "You didn't just get caught up, Claire. You chose him. You chose to lie to me. You chose to steal from our daughter's future. And you've been doing it for months." I felt a knot tighten in my chest, but I swallowed it down. I couldn't allow myself to be swayed by her apologies or her tears. Not anymore. "I want you to know, Claire, that Emily knows everything. She found the texts, the bank statements. She's the one who uncovered it all. She's the one who protected the money." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. I could hear her scrambling, no doubt trying to piece together a defense. But I wasn't giving her the chance to twist this into something else. "How long, Claire? How long were you planning to leave? How long have you been taking money from our account? The money we saved for Emily's college?" "Ethan, please," she pleaded. I wasn't thinking clearly. I thought if I could just get away, start over, I could fix things. But I was wrong. I see that now. I never wanted to hurt you or Emily. It was all a mistake. I ran a hand through my hair, fighting to stay calm. You don't get it, do you? It's not about starting over. It's about the damage you've done. You've betrayed me. You've betrayed Emily. And you've stolen from her future. And you think a simple sorry is going to make it all better? She didn't respond at first. It was as though the weight of my words hit her in a way she hadn't expected. When she finally spoke again, her voice was smaller, less confident. What do you want from me, Ethan? What do you want me to do? I took a deep breath, holding the phone with both hands now. I'm filing for divorce, Claire. I've already made that decision, and I'm filing for full custody of Emily. You don't get to come back into her life like this, like nothing happened. There was a long pause, and when she finally spoke, her voice was trembling. Ethan, please. I know I've made mistakes, but I'm still her mother. She needs me. I need to be in her life. Not right now, I said firmly. You don't get to just walk back in after everything you've done. You don't get to take her trust, break it, and expect her to welcome you with open arms. She doesn't need you, Claire. Not like this. Claire was silent for a moment. Then I heard her sigh, the sound full of frustration and resignation. I didn't want it to end like this, she whispered, her voice cracking. I didn't want to lose you both. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I glanced at Emily, who was sitting on the couch, her eyes focused on the ground. Her shoulders were tense, but she didn't look up. I knew she was listening, but I also knew that this wasn't just my fight anymore. It was hers too. Claire, you don't get to play the victim here, I said, my voice softer now. You've made your choices. You've broken everything, and now you're going to have to live with it. I hung up the phone, the click of the call ending sounding louder than it ever had before. As I sat down beside Emily, she looked up at me, her expression unreadable. There were no tears, no outbursts, just the quiet stillness that followed a broken trust. I reached for her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. We're going to be okay, Emily. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. She nodded, her grip tightening around my hand, as if she needed to hold on to something solid, something that wouldn't break. For the first time in days, I felt like I might be able to breathe again. The next few days passed in a blur of legal paperwork and emotional tension. I knew the process of divorce and custody would be difficult, but I wasn't prepared for how much it would shake me. Every time I looked at Emily, I saw the weight of what had happened hanging over her, her mother's betrayal, the lies, the theft. The person who should have been her protector had abandoned her, and now she was left trying to navigate the wreckage. I could see her trying to be strong, but the cracks were there. Small moments where the hurt would slip through her calm exterior. We spent most of the following week huddled together in the evenings, trying to reclaim some semblance of normalcy. I took a step back from work, telling my boss that I needed time to focus on the family. Emily had been staying home from school a little more often, just to avoid the awkward glances, the whispers. It was a strange new reality where we were both survivors of something we didn't choose, left to piece things back together. But one thing was certain, we were in this together. I had to keep reminding myself of that. In the middle of everything, I couldn't help but feel like I had failed. Claire had always been the one to hold things together. I had trusted her, maybe too much. How had I missed the signs? How had I not noticed the cracks that had slowly formed in our marriage? In those quiet, lonely moments at night, the guilt gnawed at me. I should have been paying closer attention. I should have questioned more. Maybe if I had, Emily wouldn't have had to shoulder the burden of knowing the truth before she was ready. But there was no time to dwell on regrets. The reality was that Emily needed me, and I needed to be strong for her. The night before the first court hearing, I sat beside her on the couch, both of us staring at the TV but not really watching. It had been a long day of paperwork and lawyers, and the weight of it all had us both exhausted. I was tired of hearing lawyers' voices, tired of answering questions, tired of seeing the look on Emily's face whenever she remembered what had happened. But I knew I couldn't afford to show how tired I was. "Dad," Emily said, breaking the silence. She didn't look at me right away, but stared at the screen, her fingers nervously tapping on the couch. Do you think? Do you think Mom will come back? Like after everything is over? The question hung in the air, heavy and fragile. I knew it was something Emily had been wrestling with. She missed her mom, even though she'd been hurt by her. It wasn't that easy to just erase the years of good memories. The woman who had been her mother, the one who had held her when she was scared, the one who had tucked her in at night and told her everything would be okay. It was hard to let go of that person, even if that person had betrayed you. I took a deep breath, then turned to her. I don't know, Emily, but I want you to know something. You don't have to make that decision right now. You don't have to forgive her if you're not ready. What she did, what she took from us, that's not something you just forget. You're allowed to feel hurt and you're allowed to be angry. And if you never want to forgive her, that's okay too. What matters is how you feel. She nodded slowly, still not looking up. I don't want to forget the good stuff, Dad. I don't want to forget that she was a good mom, even if she's done terrible things. I squeezed her hand, my heart aching. You don't have to forget, Emily. You get to choose what part of her you want to remember. The good stuff, it's yours to keep. No one can take that away from you, not even her. And the bad stuff? Well, that's something you'll figure out in your own time. But whatever you choose, I'll be here. You're not alone in this. For a long moment, Emily stayed silent, her eyes fixed on the TV but unseeing. I could tell she was processing everything I had said, trying to reconcile the mother she loved with the woman who had betrayed her. I couldn't blame her for the confusion, the hurt. I was still trying to figure it all out myself. Finally, Emily stood up, her shoulders a little straighter. She looked down at me, her expression softening. Thanks, Dad, she said, her voice quieter than usual. I don't know what I'd do without you. You don't have to worry about that, kiddo, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I'm not going anywhere. And just like that, I made a silent promise to myself. No matter what happened with the divorce, no matter where this journey took us, I would protect Emily. I would do everything in my power to give her the stability, the love, and the future she deserved, one that didn't include the shadow of her mother's betrayal hanging over her head. As we moved through the next few days, preparing for the court hearings, I began to realize that, despite everything that had happened, we had one another. And in the end, that was all we really needed to start rebuilding. The days leading up to the court hearing were a blur of legal jargon, decisions that had to be made quickly, and endless conversations with lawyers. I had never imagined that my life would take such a turn, sitting in lawyers' offices, going through financial documents, preparing to fight for custody of my daughter. The reality of what was happening hit me harder every day. Claire wasn't the person I thought she was, and now I was left to figure out how to shield Emily from the wreckage. Emily, despite everything, was holding it together. She was quieter than usual, but I saw her trying to be strong, trying to act like nothing had changed, even though I knew it had. She still missed Claire, still longed for the version of her mother she once knew, and I hated seeing her go through that, knowing there was nothing I could do to fix it. She'd been hurt by someone she should have been able to trust completely, and now I had to step in as the protector. It wasn't just about keeping her safe physically, it was about keeping her emotionally whole. One night, as I was reviewing some documents on the kitchen table, Emily came and sat across from me. She wasn't talking, just staring at her hands, her fingers picking at the edge of the table, as if she were trying to focus on something that wasn't in front of her. Hey, Em, I said, setting my papers down. What's on your mind? She looked up at me, her eyes a little red, and I could see she was holding back tears. Dad, do you think I'll ever be able to forgive Mom for what she did? The question stopped me in my tracks. I hadn't realized how much this was weighing on her. I could see the confusion and hurt in her eyes, and I knew this wasn't something she'd come to terms with yet. I don't know, sweetheart, I said softly, my heart breaking for her. It's up to you, and it's okay if you don't know the answer yet. Emily nodded, but there was a quiet sadness in her expression that told me she wasn't as sure as I was about the idea of forgiveness. I don't know how to feel. I still want to be her daughter. I still want her to be my mom, but she's not the same person anymore. I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. You don't have to figure all of this out right now, Emily. It's okay to feel all of that. It's okay to be angry, and it's okay to miss the mom you had before. But you also need to remember that what she did, what she took from us, that's not your fault. You didn't cause this, and you don't have to carry the weight of it. You have the right to feel hurt, and you have the right to take your time to heal. Her hand tightened around mine, and she gave me a small, weary smile. Thanks, Dad. I don't know what I would do without you. You won't have to, I said firmly. I'm here, kiddo, always. We'll figure this out together. The next morning, we had to go to court. I knew it was going to be a long, emotional day. We were going to lay everything out. Claire's affair, the money she'd taken, the betrayal she'd inflicted on our family. But as we sat in the waiting room, I could feel Emily's anxiety building. She was trying to keep it together, but I could see how nervous she was. And honestly, I was nervous too. I didn't know what would happen in that courtroom. I didn't know how much of Emily's future would be in my hands after that day, and I hated the uncertainty. Hey, I said, sitting next to her and putting my arm around her shoulders. It's going to be okay. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. She looked up at me, her eyes a little more hopeful, but still uncertain. Do you think Mom will be in the courtroom? I don't know, I said. But no matter what happens, we're in this together. You and me. Emily nodded, and I could see her drawing strength from the simple reassurance. We had each other, and that had to be enough, for now. The doors to the courtroom opened, and the time had come to face what was ahead. As we walked into the room, the weight of everything, our shattered family, the pain, the betrayal, felt like it was pressing down on me. But I had Emily beside me, and as long as I had her, I knew we would get through this. I could fight for her, protect her, and maybe, just maybe, help her heal, one day at a time. And that was all I could do. As the session began, I took a deep breath and held Emily's hand, ready for whatever came next. We were in this together. We'd make it through. The court hearing felt like an eternity. I had never imagined myself sitting in a courtroom, fighting for the custody of my daughter, but there I was. As we waited for the judge to enter, I couldn't shake the feeling of everything being out of my control. My life, our life, had been turned upside down in the span of just a few weeks. And now I was about to face a decision that would shape Emily's future, one that carried the weight of betrayal, disappointment, and heartache. Emily sat beside me, her body stiff with nerves, her fingers fiddling with the hem of her jacket. She hadn't said much since we entered the room, and I knew she was struggling to keep her composure. I couldn't blame her. The last few weeks had been a whirlwind of confusion and pain, and this was only adding to it. I could feel the tension in her body, but I couldn't ease it. The only thing I could do was be there for her, be her anchor. As we waited for the judge to arrive, I caught sight of Claire sitting on the other side of the room, her head lowered, her arms crossed tightly in front of her. Her usual confident demeanor seemed to have evaporated. There was no mistaking the fact that she was feeling the consequences of her actions. She had betrayed not only me, but her daughter as well. And now she was fighting to somehow come back from that, to reclaim the role of mother, despite everything that had happened. I couldn't look at her. Not now. The betrayal was still too fresh. I could see the guilt in her eyes every time she looked at me, and I wasn't ready to face that. I wasn't sure if I ever would be. The door to the courtroom opened, and the judge walked in. I stood quickly, Emily following my lead, and we both turned to face the judge as the proceedings began. The judge, an older woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, addressed the court and began reviewing the case. The cold, professional tone of the legal proceedings made everything feel even more surreal. Here I was, sitting next to my daughter, trying to figure out how to rebuild our lives, while Claire sat across the room, pretending to be a mother again. It felt like a game she was trying to play, and I couldn't accept it. As the hearing went on, I did my best to remain composed, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of betrayal each time Claire tried to present her side. She spoke about the counseling she had gone through, how she had changed, how she was trying to be a better person. But I could see through it. It was too little, too late. You don't just steal your child's future and then get to walk back in like nothing happened. You don't abandon your family for someone else and expect forgiveness without putting in the work. and Claire wasn't showing me that she was putting in the work. I glanced at Emily as Claire spoke. Emily had been listening quietly, but I could see the way her eyes narrowed when Claire's voice rose with desperation. She had heard it all before, the apologies, the promises of change, and none of it had ever meant anything. Emily didn't believe the words anymore. She had seen the truth, and nothing Claire said would change that. After a while, it was my turn to speak. I stood, my heart pounding in my chest, but I knew I had to say my piece. This wasn't just about legal terms or custody arrangements. It was about Emily's future. It was about her mental and emotional well-being. It was about ensuring that she would never have to question her worth again, not because of Claire's actions, but because of the love and support I would continue to give her. I kept my voice steady as I addressed the court. I'm here today because my daughter deserves stability. She deserves security. And she deserves to feel safe, knowing that the people who are supposed to love her will never leave her or betray her. What Claire did, what she took from us, was unforgivable. But what matters now is that Emily and I are moving forward. We're rebuilding, and that's what I'll continue to do, every day, no matter what. The judge nodded, her eyes focused on me. The room was silent for a moment as she processed my words. Then she turned to Claire, asking her the same hard questions she had already asked. Claire's responses were full of desperation, but they lacked substance. The evidence was clear. Claire had made her choice, and it wasn't in the best interest of her daughter. The hearing continued, but I felt a sense of finality settling in. Emily wasn't going to be caught in the middle anymore. She wasn't going to be manipulated by the same promises Claire had made before. This was going to be about what was best for Emily, not what was easiest for Claire. When the hearing finally ended, we were told to wait for the judge's decision. The silence in the courtroom was thick with anticipation. I held Emily's hand tightly, knowing that whatever happened next, we were going to be okay. We were already okay. We had each other, and we were stronger than we had ever been before. As we walked out of the courtroom, Emily looked up at me, her expression calm but resolute. "Do you think she'll ever change, Dad?" I squeezed her hand, giving her a reassuring smile. "I don't know, Emily. Some people change, some don't. But whatever happens, we'll be fine. You and me." She nodded, the slightest hint of a smile on her lips. "Yeah, we will be." And in that moment, I believed it. We would be. The next few weeks felt like a strange balance between chaos and quiet. The court ruling came down in our favor. Full custody for me, with Claire getting supervised visitation. I'd been expecting it, but still, the relief that washed over me was almost overwhelming. At least for now, Emily and I were safe from the worst of the fallout. The emotional weight, however, was a different story. We moved out of the house we had shared with Claire. It wasn't a decision I'd taken lightly, but the house felt like a tomb, haunted by memories of betrayal, long, empty hallways filled with echoes of a life we had built, now shattered. I didn't want Emily to have to live in a place that constantly reminded her of what had happened. It wasn't just the physical space. It was the emotional space that had been violated. Finding a new place wasn't easy. Moving was never something I looked forward to, but it felt necessary. It was part of the healing process. And for Emily, it was a chance to start over in a way, to carve out new memories without the specter of Claire's betrayal looming over us. I found a smaller, more modest apartment in a quieter neighborhood, closer to Emily's school. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was ours. It was a place we could build a new foundation. The first few nights in the new place were surreal. There were still boxes everywhere, and it felt strange, like we were living in a temporary space, even though this was our home now. The furniture was sparse, and the walls were bare, but there was something comforting about the simplicity. It wasn't about the things we had. It was about the space we were carving out for ourselves, a place where we could rebuild. Emily, despite her usual quiet nature, seemed to adapt quickly to the new environment. She spent the first few days unpacking her things and setting up her room the way she liked it. Lots of books, a desk for her coding projects, and her robot kit scattered across the floor. She seemed more at ease here, and I was grateful for that. It was like this small change gave her a sense of control, something she had lost in the chaos of the past months. But it wasn't all easy. I could see the toll Claire's actions had taken on her. She'd been so calm throughout the divorce process, so collected in the courtroom. But now, in the silence of our new home, I saw the cracks begin to show. There were moments when she would drift into thought, her face clouded with a sadness I couldn't always reach. There were times when she would curl up on the couch, hugging a pillow tight to her chest, and I could see that the hurt was still there, even if she didn't speak about it. I tried to give her space, but I also knew that I had to be there for her in ways I hadn't been before. I started setting aside time every evening to sit with her, just the two of us. We didn't always talk. Sometimes we just sat in silence, letting the quiet settle over us. But I could tell she needed the reassurance that I wasn't going anywhere, that we were going to get through this together. One evening, as we sat at the kitchen table, Emily broke the silence. "Dad," she said, her voice soft but serious. "Do you think I'll ever forgive Mom for what she did?" I looked at her, my heart aching. She had been carrying this question for a while now, and I had known it was only a matter of time before she asked. It wasn't an easy question to answer, not when I wasn't sure myself how I felt about Claire. But I had to be honest with her. "I don't know, Em," I said, my voice steady. "You don't have to forgive her if you're not ready, and you don't have to make that decision now. What she did, it hurt you, and that's okay. You have every right to feel how you feel. If you ever decide to forgive her, that's your choice, but it has to be when you're ready, not because anyone else says you should." She nodded. Her eyes focused on the table as she processed my words. "I don't know if I can forgive her, Dad," she said after a long pause. "I don't know if I want to." "I understand," I said softly. "And that's okay. Whatever you decide, I'll be here for you, no matter what." She looked up at me then, her expression more at peace than I'd seen in weeks. "Thanks, Dad," she whispered, her voice filled with a softness that only came when she truly felt safe. The next few weeks brought small but steady progress. Emily's mood seemed to improve as the days went by, though I could tell she was still navigating a landscape of complicated emotions. She had her good days, and she had her bad days, but that was part of the healing process, part of finding her way back to herself. I continued to keep my focus on making sure she felt safe and loved, and I was learning to be more patient with myself, too. One afternoon, while Emily worked on one of her robotics projects, I found myself staring out the window, watching the sunlight filter through the trees. It had been a long road, and we still had a long way to go, but for the first time in months, I felt something like hope stirring in me. We were still here. We were still standing. And no matter what Claire chose, I would never stop fighting for Emily's happiness, for her future. She deserved that, and I would make sure she had it. And as I looked at her, bent over her work, so focused and determined, I realized that maybe, just maybe, we were already stronger than we'd been before. This was our new beginning, and we were going to be okay. The weeks that followed the court ruling felt like they moved in slow motion, but with each passing day, I began to notice small signs of healing. Emily was adjusting, even though I knew she still carried a lot of unresolved emotions. Some days she seemed perfectly fine, laughing at jokes, getting excited about her coding projects, spending time with me. Other days, she'd retreat into herself, closing the door to her room or sitting quietly with a faraway look in her eyes. I knew the process would take time, and I tried not to rush it, letting her find her own pace. In a lot of ways, I felt like I was navigating this just as much as she was. I wasn't sure how to help her through the pain, how to guide her through the confusion. How do you help a child understand that someone they loved, someone they trusted, had betrayed them so deeply? The best I could do was be there for her, show her that I wasn't going anywhere, and let her know that her feelings were valid, no matter what they were. One afternoon, I was working on some paperwork at the kitchen table when Emily came in, holding something in her hands. She looked a little nervous, like she wasn't sure how I would react. "Hey, Dad," she said quietly, sitting down across from me. "I've been thinking about something." I put the papers down and looked at her. "What's on your mind?" She hesitated for a moment before sliding a piece of paper across the table. It was a drawing. I picked it up and studied it, an intricate design, some kind of robot she'd been working on for a school project. But it wasn't just any drawing. It was the first time I'd seen her create something so personal in months. The robot's arms were reaching out, almost like it was holding something, and there was a small, empty space between its hands, like it was waiting for something to fill it. "This is what I've been working on," Emily said, her voice soft. But, it's kind of how I've been feeling lately. Like I've been trying to figure out where to put everything that's happened. I don't know how to fix things, but I know I have to build something new, even if it's just one piece at a time." Her words struck me more than I think she realized. She was right. We couldn't fix the past, but we could build something new from it. She wasn't just talking about a robot. She was talking about herself, about us. I felt a wave of emotion rise in my chest as I looked at the drawing, at her, and realized that she was trying to make sense of everything in her own way. She was rebuilding. "That's really beautiful, Emily," I said, my voice thick. "I think you're doing exactly what you need to do, and I'm proud of you. You're stronger than I think you realize." She smiled faintly, though there was still a sadness in her eyes. "It's not perfect, but it's something, and maybe that's enough." I nodded. "It's more than enough. We're both still figuring things out, but we're doing it together." Later that night, as I was putting Emily to bed, she surprised me again. "Dad, can we talk about something?" "Of course," I said, sitting on the edge of her bed. "I don't know if I can forgive Mom yet," she said, her voice quiet but resolute. "But I think I'm starting to understand why she made the choices she did. Not that they were right, but maybe I understand why she did it. I don't think I'll ever be able to forget, but I don't want to carry around all this anger anymore. I just want to focus on building, on moving forward." I stared at her for a long moment, taken aback by her maturity. She was figuring out something that most adults still struggled with, understanding without needing to forgive completely, letting go of the anger to move forward. It wasn't easy, and I knew it would take time, but hearing her say that made me feel like maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of all this pain. "You don't have to forgive her right away, Emily," I said softly, "but I'm really proud of you for being able to see that. You're doing the best you can with what you've got, and that's all anyone can ask of you." "I know, Dad," she said, her eyes already beginning to flutter shut, "but I think it's time for me to start looking forward. I'm ready." I kissed her forehead and turned off the light, standing in the doorway for a moment, watching her as she drifted off to sleep. It was a quiet victory, one that didn't involve grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but it was a victory nonetheless. Emily was healing, and I was healing with her. The road ahead was still uncertain. I didn't know what the future would hold, or what kind of relationship Claire and Emily would have, if any. But what I did know was that Emily and I would be okay. We would continue to rebuild piece by piece until we created something stronger, something more resilient than before. It wouldn't be perfect, but it would be ours, and it would be enough. And as I watched my daughter sleep, I realized that this was the moment I had been fighting for. It wasn't about getting back what we'd lost. It was about moving forward one step at a time, together. Life can throw unexpected challenges our way, often leaving us feeling lost or betrayed. In times of hardship, it's important to remember that healing is a process, and it's okay to not have all the answers right away. Focus on building something new, even if it's just one small step at a time. Allow yourself to feel the pain, but don't let it define you. Surround yourself with those who support you, and remember that you don't have to forgive or forget to move forward. Sometimes, the strength to rebuild comes from within, and from taking things one day at a time.